see everything now?
Yes, that's perfect.
All right. Okay. So thank you so much again for logging on and being part of this webinar. This is really exciting. My name is Janine. I am the CV nerd. It sounds like a song, but it's not. I have spent a career in HR looking at CVs and looking at selection processes and things, working with Virgin Atlantic, and then I left there a few years ago, and since then I've been helping kind of on the other side of the desk, helping people to get the jobs that they want and understand the processes that they've got. So that's me, I'm the CV nerd. So what we're going to do this evening, a bit of an introduction and who I am, just so you know, I'm not some stranger that actually doesn't know anything about either CVs or interviews. I've got experience with both. We'll talk a little bit about selection and why we do it, why it's so important, and then CVs and interviews. So who am I? As I've said, I used to work at Virgin Atlantic. I started off working in flight ops before becoming involved in pilot recruitment and then moving into HR and recruitment full time. So I've seen a lot of CVs, I've written a lot of selection processes and done so many interviews and helped people with feedback afterwards. Towards the end of my time at Virgin, I did notice that a lot of people that weren't getting through selection processes seemed to be coming to me. And so I was spending quite a lot of time with people outlining, you know, what the point is of interviews, why maybe it hadn't gone right for them, and helping to put them in a better place for their next interviews. And I was having quite a lot of success in that. So in one of the downturns in the industry, and as you'll know, it's a cyclical industry and they do happen, I opted for redundancy and I've had, I think this is my 8th year of working for myself and with Airline Prep to demystify the whole selection process and write CVs and help, as I say, get people where they want to be. I'm also a member of the British Association of CV Writers, so I've got a few credentials there as well, and I have to go through a selection process for that just to make sure I'm still up to scratch every year. So I've got that next month, crikey. Okay, so yeah, so that's me, and as I say, lots of experience with CVs, lots of experience with interviews, and I love helping people get where they want to be, because I understand that interviews and CVs, they are hard, and it's hard to get noticed for the right reasons, and that's what I really like doing, helping people to get noticed and understand the processes that they're being put through. Okay, so selection, what's the point? Why do we do it? Ultimately, we can't hire everybody. For most of the selection processes that happen for student pilots and often for pilots who have got experience, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of applications. We cannot hire everybody. We cannot even see everybody for interview. So having a selection process reduces our risk as an employer, and it helps us see, hopefully, the people that meet our requirements. By making a process relevant to the job, you can also predict how successful applicants are likely to behave when they're actually in the role, and that's quite handy to do. By having a selection process, it ensures fairness to all applications, to all applicants, sorry, based on age, gender, or on disability. And there are so many ways to select people, from application form, video interview, in-person interview, group assessments, numerical verbal testing, psychometric questionnaires. It helps us to build up a really huge battery of information on each of those candidates, and that helps us choose the ones that go on to the next stage and ultimately get the jobs, and those that maybe aren't ready for it this time. But it does give us a lot of really useful information to help us build and select and make the best choices for our companies. Something worth remembering that I think people often forget: the recruiters want you to do well. They're all really hoping for the best and hoping that you get where you want as well. Some people think, oh, HR, they spoil everything. Sometimes we do, I won't lie. But really, we want you to do as well as you do. Okay, so the first part this evening that we're going to cover is about the first part of the process, which is your CV. CVs are hugely important. Again, think of them and recruitment in general as a risk assessment for the company that you're applying to join. And as I've said, we want to get as much information as we can to help us make an informed choice on whether you're the right person to progress through the levels and if you're ultimately right for the role. CVs are crucial because they're often the first part in that process. And they're the bit that we will refer back to time and time again. CVs are you in your own words. Even if you get someone like me to help you, we still make sure that the CV sounds like you, and we don't stop until that CV sounds like you and you're happy with it and it has your voice, because it's important. It should be you in your own words rather than me. They don't want to hire me. I would make an absolutely useless pilot. So things that I would say, yeah, there's two things I think really important in recruitment and CV writing. Ultimately, always make sure you have got a master copy ready to go. In aviation, jobs can appear from nowhere and they will disappear as fast. If the recruiters get enough applicants of a really high standard, they will close applications early because they don't need it to be open. So it's really important that you are ready to go and ready for when those opportunities arise. The other thing I would say is to amend and save each CV and cover letter if you're doing one, and also save application forms so that you've got everything you have sent into that company and you can remember exactly what you said, because we will be referring to it in interview. So they're two really crucial parts of the application process and to do with the CVs. But the most important one, if you remember just one thing, just be ready. Be ready to take advantage of the opportunities as they come. Okay, so what kind of things are we looking for? In a CV, we are looking for loads of things. Here are some of them. We're looking for honesty. Remember, if you join us as a pilot or on a pilot training scheme, you're going to be referenced, and it's really important that we can get references that show that you have honesty and integrity. And we're looking for that all the way through the recruitment process, starting with your CV. I know people think, oh, it's just a little white lie. It doesn't really matter, but it can do, because those little white lies can catch you out and it can stop you from getting where you want to be. So just be honest. We would much rather people are honest on their CVs than give us all the bells and whistles and it's not factually correct and then later catches them out. We're looking for motivation. Can you tell that from a CV? Yes, you can. You can tell that from somebody's profile. You can tell that from how they describe the previous jobs that they've had, from including volunteering work. There are loads of ways that we can see if someone is motivated, and then you just back it up in the interview. We're after content, not gimmicks. Going back to the very late 90s, when I first was working in flight ops, we actually had somebody who sent in their CV but with a shoe in a box because they wanted to get a foot in the door. Okay, yeah, it made us laugh, but they still didn't get an interview because their CV didn't have what we wanted. So while it made a lot of office workers laugh, it wasn't going to help them get an interview, because we want the content. We want you to have the experience that we've asked for, and no amount of gimmicks is going to make up for that. We want a clear, structured CV, no more than 2 pages. Be kind to your recruiters. They notice it, and if they see a CV that's 4 or 5 pages, what does that tell us? That that person can't be concise. They're not all of that information is going to be relevant. It's very unlikely to be successful. So keep it to 2 pages and no more than that. We want to know what you know about us as a company. Companies love that. If people are interested in them, and you should be, you want to work there. So put in the legwork and do as much prep about that company as you can. Follow them on their socials, know what's going on there and understand their culture and whether you would be a good fit, because the recruitment is a 2-way process. It's about them choosing you, but it's also about you choosing them if you want to. What else do we need? Your skills, your hours, training, qualifications, all of that information should be on your CV. Ultimately, we need to look back and see, are you a good risk for us? Training any pilots is a really costly business. And if it doesn't work out, someone has to be accountable for that. So we want to make sure that if we're taking on that level of accountability, that we know that you're going to be a good risk. And we want you, we really do, I promise you this, we want a reason to invite you to the next stage. We love to do that. We love it when we see a brilliant CV that's got everything, it ticks all of the boxes for us, it's got the content, it's got all the information, and there are no questions. That is a really happy day, because it doesn't always happen. Okay, so what does this mean for you as applicants? It means you need to work for it. You need to tailor your CV, as I've already mentioned, and your cover letter for each and every application that you make. What happens if you don't? You might be successful, but you're running a risk of not being successful. And if you could take maybe half an hour, you would have that information. It would be tailored to the employer, and the employer's recruiters notice it. I promise you that. Also, use the vacancy or job description to help guide you, match the values that you have, which they're looking for. Think about keywords as well. It's really useful for ATS's, application tracking systems. So where we've got big volume recruitment, a lot of that will go through an application tracker, and it will be picking out keywords. They will be keywords that we have defined. So you can get that information from job descriptions and from the vacancies that most companies put online. Okay, let's talk fact or fiction. Date of birth and education dates, do you have to include them? No, they are not relevant to your application. Age is governed by legislation to protect applicants, mainly at the beginning and at the end of their careers. But to be honest, obviously, also a lot of females around my age, because we're unfortunately can be an overlooked section of the workforce. So, and people can think, oh, look at her age, she's probably got children, she's probably not going to have her mind on the job. Unscrupulous recruiters may well think those things. So in order to make things fairer for everybody, don't put your date of birth on there. What about training or employment dates? Now, you don't need them, but they do help us to piece together a timeline for you, and it helps us to see what you've been doing for the last 5 years, which is very relevant for airside passes. So you don't need them, but it can help. It won't necessarily hinder you at this stage of your career. Now, something I'm often asked, does my CV have to be on one page? Nope. If it can fit on one page without being squashed and looking really messy, then that is brilliant. But if it would look better to be split over two, then split it over two. The more important things are, is it easy to read? Is there a lot of white space? And definitely go no more than 2 pages. It really isn't necessary. Now, something I'll talk about this in a bit more detail later on. Do recruiters really spend less than 7 seconds reading a CV? In some areas, in some industries, they might. But I would say not necessarily for pilots. It would take us that long to check your hours, to check your training. So maybe not. Maybe you kind of get, I don't know, 14, 15 seconds. So it's still not very long, but it's kind of not 7, which is quite terrifying. Don't be too wordy. Remember the industry you're going for. Remember, you've got to be succinct. You've got to keep relevant content. They're really key parts of the job. It's important that you can demonstrate that in your CV as well. Okay, so CV checklist. How does your CV scan? Is it ready to read? Is there plenty of white space around it? Have you tailored it to the company and role, and have you used keywords for the application tracking? Is it all aligned and spell checked? Do all your links work? If you put a link on there, we will check it. We're nosy like that. I mean, that's good for you because it sometimes shows if someone has been on your LinkedIn page, for example. But it's also quite frustrating, and it looks a bit shoddy if you put a link on there and it doesn't work. So make sure that all the links work if you put them on your CV. Now, this word, ruthless, make it so. Do a really ruthless edit. Do that, leave it, come back to it the next day. There's no point editing it and then having a look again later. You need to give yourself a little bit of time to go away before you come back to it, because I bet you there'll be other things that you'll want to change. Have you included referee info? A lot of people do this. It's not necessary, and you shouldn't do it, because no one should be contacting your referees unless they have made you a formal job offer. Don't put the information on there. Just leave it off. It's not needed. We shouldn't be using it. And so don't let people have access to it. It's personal information. Have you got someone else to check it? Always a really good idea. I do that with my poor husband. It's like, oh, Janine, you do this for a job. Do I really have to check it? It's like, yes, you do. And to be fair, he'd probably find a typo or something in there, or something that, you know, maybe he thinks doesn't scan right, and we can have a chat about it. But always get someone else to check it if you can. Finally, does it really reflect who you are? Is it honest? Is it factual? If you've done all that, send it off as a PDF and good luck. So that's CVs. Let's move on. So assuming you sent your CV in, you get that great email pinging in through your inbox to say, we would like to invite you for an interview. So let's talk about that. So well done, firstly, on getting through the initial sift. Check everything that you need for the next stage. Is it online? If it's face-to-face, what's the location? What time is it? Do you need any reasonable adjustments? Is there anything that they need to know that's going to help you through the process? Make sure that you start prepping. Check all the usual places for information on the selection process. But please remember, processes can and will change. It has to happen. As soon as we do an interview, we know those questions are out there. And while it shouldn't be that the process is changed during that batch of recruitment, sometimes it will do. Sometimes it's better and fairer for everybody if you do. So just be prepared for anything. And think about, you know, we're all reasonable human beings. Think about what questions you might ask if you were doing an interview for the job that you're going for. Think about what you want your recruiters to know about you and how you can format and structure it. It's not hugely sexy talking about format and structure. It sounds a bit beige, but it's honestly the difference between candidates that get through processes and those that don't. So how to prep. I'm going to talk a lot about competency answers because they're more likely the type of interviews that you guys are going to face. And I'll talk in depth about those in a moment, but you will need to prepare some competency answers. I've got some generic competencies that I use in this presentation, and we'll talk about those later. But competency examples are basically things that have happened to you in the workplace or in training, hopefully within the last couple of years, that demonstrate areas like leadership or team working. Have a few of those competencies lined up and basically match your skills to what the employer is looking for. Now, I sound a bit like a spin doctor, apologies for that, but it is about structure and spin. You've got to sell yourself, your skills and your experience and to the company, and actually sell the company back to the company, if that makes sense. I've mentioned motivation already with regard to the CV, but this is where you can really show it. Be confident, motivated, engaging. Know what you want to say about yourself, and don't worry about you're all very skilled people, and that's okay. You don't have to dumb it down. If you've done something that you're proud of, you have to sell it. You have to tell us about it. Otherwise, you leave that interview and we don't know, and we could perhaps have missed out on, you could have been our number one choice if you'd have kind of divulged a bit more information. So have a think about the stuff that you've read, that you've done, and if there's something, you know, volunteering work or anything like that, tell us about it. Yeah, don't miss out on the opportunity to sell yourself, even though to start off with it might make you feel a bit uncomfortable. Don't make it all about what you would get out of the job. The number of interviews I've done where people say, well, it's this great opportunity for me, this could be a job for life for me, great pension, great terms and conditions. Yeah, all of those things are factually correct, but that doesn't make me want to hire you. Most people will go down that track as well. So you can turn that on its head and sell the company back to the interviewers. Find out what's going on there, and that, you know, sometimes turning it on its head and saying, I'd like to be a company that has all of these ecological ambitions, or that's trying to do this, that and the other. So if you know their ambitions and what they're aiming to achieve, you can sell it back in a slightly different way. And it also makes you stand out as a company, to the company as a candidate. Check social media, because that's where you get the most up-to-date information. Okay, first impressions, they do count. They are really powerful. You make a good first impression within the first 5 seconds of your interview. Once that mental file is created, your interviewers are going to be looking for evidence to confirm it. It's kind of confirmation bias. So if you go in there, trip over a chair or spill water down yourself, can you put a poor start behind you? Well, you can. It's going to take another 5 positive interactions to undo a single poor first impression. Think about the psychological reason for that. People need repeated and consistent proof that their first judgment was wrong before they actually change it. So are you going to get 5 chances during the course of an interview? You might do during the course of the day, but that's why the opening moments of the interview is so important. But if you do go in there and have a less than fabulous start, you can put it behind you. Recruiters, me included, do see candidates recover when they show enthusiasm, they're engaging, and they deliver thoughtful, well-structured answers during their interviews. So first impressions do count, but while you do everything that you can to make a good one, sometimes it doesn't quite happen as you want, but you can overcome it. Okay, so let's talk, how do you make a good first impression? Have a think. You're going to be pilots are working in aviation. Punctuality is key. So make sure you're on time, make sure you're early. Dress appropriately. You're going to be representing that company's brand. So it's really important that you turn up for the interview and you look the part. You know, you will be representing the brand, we'll be wearing their uniform, and that's a really important thing for us as companies. It's important that we take that people take that seriously. I did do one interview. A pilot turned up with their logbooks in a carrier bag, and they were wearing a dirty shirt and an anorak. They didn't have a suit, and it really stood out. And it's like, okay, it's not a great first impression, but let's just see how the rest of the interview goes. And the rest of the interview wasn't much better, to be honest, because they just didn't put the work and they just didn't appear professional. So all of this helps to build a really professional impression of you. Body language, sit up straight, offer a firm handshake, maintain good eye contact. Or if you've got a problem with eye contact and you're happy to tell the interviewers in advance, do that. It's not the end of the world. It's just important that we know. Genuine smiles as well. You know, you're going to be talking about aviation, which is a subject you love. So hopefully somewhere in there's an opportunity for some smiling. Prepare your introduction. Remember, it isn't just about the first few seconds. We want that professionalism, confidence, and authenticity to shine from you throughout your interview. Okay, so when you finally get a face-to-face and you've made that great first impression, know the kind of questions that you can expect. Most interviews are roughly split into 3 sections. The first one will be getting to know you, where we give you those motivation questions. Tell me about yourself. Why should we hire you? Why did you want to become a pilot? You know, why are you interested in our company? So from that, we get quite a lot of information. We then go on to more in-depth competency and tech questions, perhaps, and then wrap it up at the end with, you know, any other business. And if you've got any questions that you want to give them, you might be asked to do an elevator pitch, just giving your final sell for the interview. Again, structure and spin, sell yourself, sell your skills, and sell the company. When we get onto competency questions, you might know those questions that would generally start, tell me about a time, or when have you? We're after specific examples from your working or training history. A way to, we'll speak about this in a moment, a way to get through those, because they can be notoriously hard to stay focused on, and you can kind of wander off on a bit of a journey. If you use a structure, you're more likely to stay on track. And the structure that is most commonly used would be STAR. At any stage throughout your interview, if you're not sure, ask. Think about the role that you're applying for. Would you let there be any ambiguity if you were working there? You wouldn't. So don't let it creep in here either. Any problems, ask. We'd much rather that, and that we know that you've not understood something, and then we can explain it perhaps another way. Okay, so I've spoken a lot about competency questions. Why do we use them? So that tell me about a time. To be honest, it's almost like time travel. It takes us back to a scenario that you've had at work. that will interest us, and it's generally about the skills that we're looking for. It's a really reliable indicator of performance. Past behaviour can actually indicate future performance too. So it's quite a good guide for us. If you're hitting the benchmarks that we need to see in those questions, it's kind of a good job from our risk assessment perspective. It's a fair risk to say, okay, they would probably be okay. They show us multiple skills, competencies from the job that you're interested in, so they are relevant. They also help to create a fair and unbiased selection process, so everyone gets the same competency questions. Sometimes you'll get different probing questions because we've all got different experiences and examples. So it would be mad, we can't just follow up with the same follow-up questions. We have to tailor those to the individual. Okay, they do need thought and a detailed response. We want to know your actions, risk assessments, thought processes, and the outcomes from these experiences, because that tells us why you do what you do. And for pilots, this type of questioning is brilliant, even though most of them hate it. It gets you to show us a range of skills, your problem solving approaches, how you make decisions, how you work or lead teams as well. So we get such a lot from it. So let's talk about structure. So competency questions, tell me about a time when. They do need a specific example of something that's happened to you. As I say, the more recent the better, because you'll remember them you'll remember them easily. And also it means that you'll kind of be able to tell us exactly what was going on. If you're using something, I had one candidate try and use something from about 4 or 5 years ago, and they can't recall it because it's not that recent. Also, the more recent ones show you off, because it's like,
Oh, Janine, I think you've just popped yourself on mute. Janine, you've just popped yourself on mute. The button is just on the top right hand of the screen. If you just click it again, it will bring your microphone back on. Oh, there you go. You're back. You were full flow there. I'm so sorry about that. Please do continue.
No problem. So whereabouts did we get to? Did you hear situation task?
No, we didn't get that far, I'm afraid.
Okay, so just talking about the actual structure, the important bit, and then I shut myself off for it. That's typical. Okay, so we use a structure because these are, first of all, they're important questions. They are ones that you can wander off track with really easily, and you don't want to do that. You want to kind of stay focused and on that path. So the reason that we use this star is to help us do that. So the ST, you don't need both of them. It's situation or task. You don't need both. What you need to do is tell us what the problem was and what you had to deal with. So anything that's relevant to that situation. So it could be weather, it could be time of day or time of year, perhaps. Anything that has an impact on the problem that you had to resolve, you need to tell us what that was. You then need to tell us what you did about whatever problem you've been faced with. It's the most important part because this tells us why you do what you do. And then we need the result. What was the outcome? As I've said, we only want completed situations with positive endings. Otherwise, think about it. It's not going to sell you if you give something, oh, you know, it didn't end hugely positively. So a completed example with a positive ending. Now, this one's especially relevant for pilots and it helps people stand out in interviews. A review. If you think about it during your training and in your work in general, when you've completed something, you generally look back over it and think, okay, well, what happened there? Did it work well? Is there anything that I would change? Bring that in at the end. It's not applicable for every question, but in some of the more negative ones, like when have you made a mistake, or yeah, or if you've lost SA or something like that, it's really relevant because there's generally something you've put in place to stop that from happening again. So tell us about it. We're really interested in it. Now, think pilot skills. These are generic competencies that I use when I'm training. Each airline has their own set of competencies. It will have their own labels, but they're all based around the same things. But you can use these to help you guide or come up with maybe some situations, competency scenarios. So communication, the biggest one for me. We're getting communication evidence from you throughout your selection process. Do you use clear and concise language? Do you check for understanding, actively listen, ask open questions? Do you use open body language? Do you avoid digressing? They're all key parts of communication that we can get from here and now evidence in your interview. And you might be able to kind of bring elements of that into your examples as well. We're also really interested in workload management because it's a key part of the pilot role. Can you manage busy workloads successfully? When have you had to do it? Think about the work when you've been at your absolute busiest and how did you get through it? And what did you learn? Do you distribute tasks fairly among groups if you're working in a team? Do you use available resources? Do you get help from other people? Do you avoid distraction? And can you prioritize well? They're key elements of workload management. Diagnosis and decision making. Again, do you use resources to diagnose a problem? Do you find and risk assess solutions? Do you use a decision making structure, things like TDADA? If you use that, tell us about it. Situational awareness. Can you identify threats, errors, and other issues and offer mitigations to them? Do you ensure that other people, if you're already working in aviation, the crew, company and customers are updated? Do you keep so it doesn't impact them? Do you think about knock-on issues, or are you just in a little bubble? We're looking for people that can think outside of that and think wider. Leadership. Do you lead by example? Do you actively listen? Do you empower others, or do you kind of keep it all in? Teamwork. Are you offering consistent support and assistance to other people? If you are, tell us about it. Conversely, you can sometimes get asked about questions when you've worked in a team that didn't work well. So we want a bit of honesty there, and maybe how you have been able to bring that situation around. We're also looking for your knowledge and standards throughout the process. So do you use structure? Do you communicate? If you're, for example, deviating from SOPs, do you monitor others' use of SOPs? Do you speak up when required? All of those things are essential. So interview checklist. Know where you're going on the day if it's face-to-face, and make sure you arrive early. Check you've got all the paperwork that you need. Make sure you've got some competency examples locked away or written down. If you want to refer to notes during the interview, make sure you're polite and ask first. Don't just do it off the bat. Get ready to make a great first impression. Look smart, be confident, good handshake, good eye contact. Be confident and polite to everybody that you meet that day. When we were recruiting, one of our managers would often get in touch with security guards and the people on reception and say, so we had a group in today, anyone there that you noticed? And we would hear good and bad. Sometimes people would be lovely to us and really rude to the receptionists, and that's not okay at all. So you want to have that great impression, and you want that with everybody. But conversely, if we had people that did come in and they were kind to everybody and welcoming and smiling, we would hear about that as well, and that's lovely. So take a moment when you're in the interview, you're sat in that chair, take a moment to think about the question, give them your best example. As we said, only use completed scenarios with positive endings, and remember that your assessors are looking for you to think and act like a pilot. Now, it can be daunting. Interviews are, quite honestly, even for some interviewers, they find interviews daunting. So if you want any help, then get in touch, because I'm there, and this I'm hugely passionate about helping people and demystifying the process. So if you need that help, then just get in touch. Okay, that is done. So Are we back? Or are you still on my screen?
No, we can see you now.
There you go. Hello.
That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Honestly, that was just really so informative. And yeah, you went through so much stuff that I definitely worried about and thought about in the past as well. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
No, honestly, it was a real pleasure. So I will open up. Does anybody have any questions? If you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, or you can raise your hand if you'd like to as well. We'll just give it a couple of minutes. But of course, if you've got any questions after this webinar, please do feel free to send us an email. We can pass it on to Janine. So yeah, if no, oh, someone's got a question. Perfect. I'll read it out to you if you like, Janine. So Hannah has asked, do you prefer a minimalistic CV or rather a very colourful kind of artsy one?
Minimalistic, because sometimes the arty ones they don't get through application trackers.
Yeah.
So you could have it could look great, but it won't get through. Also, sometimes they don't like lots of multiple columns. So I've seen some really beautiful CVs that have got multiple columns and they don't get through application trackers. So I would say, yeah, minimalistic probably would be better.
Oh, interesting. That's a really good question. Really good question. Oh, we've got a few more coming through. Saffron has asked, do you have any example competency questions to use and think about?
Oh, I've got loads. If you think about, I mean, really thinking about the kind of competencies and it's strange because every company is different, but they're all kind of have similar things. They're just called, they have different labels. But think about things for customer service. So often you'll be asked, and pilots are expected to have excellent customer service. So maybe a time when you've given exceptional customer service, and it needs to be exceptional. And with customer service, think empathy. It's when you're going above and beyond what's expected in your role, in order to give something back to the customers. So yeah, when have you made a mistake? And people detest that kind of question because they think, oh, it's just really negative, and it can be. But if you pitched it right, you can have made a mistake, learned from it, and put something in place that stops that mistake happening again. So it's all really valuable information. But I've got, honestly, I'm really sorry, Saffron. I could talk all night about competency interview examples.
We'll have to do a part 2. No, that's brilliant. We've got some great questions coming through here. So we've got another one from, oh, sorry, they're moving now, so there's so many. So Rebecca has asked, quick question, when talking about volunteering for the CV, does it have to include relevant volunteering to do with aviation?
No, any volunteering at all. Because if you think about it, there aren't that many people that do it. If you do it, if it is for aviation, then that's great because it shows us volunteering and it shows that a passion for aviation. But it could be any volunteering at all because you're giving up your time to help other people. So yeah, mention it.
Brilliant. That was a really good question. All of these are really good questions. We've got another one from Ella, who's asked, how important or necessary is it to include things like interests or hobbies in a CV?
Oh, that's really interesting, Ella, because there's two schools of thought. The older you are and the more into your career that you are, you might not have space for it. If you're starting out, I think it's a really useful thing because it can show similarities. It can show us a little bit about what you're interested in. One thing I would say is try and steer away from anything that's too solitary. I was helping someone on their CV recently, and I said, okay, let's talk about hobbies and interests. It's like, well, I like reading and I do this on the computer and I like photography. And it's like, okay, they're really great skills and great things to be interested in. But what do you do as part of a team? Because sometimes it can make it look like you're a bit too solitary. Now, is that going to stop you from getting an interview? No. But you might just want to temper it with some things that you do with other people as well.
Interesting, really interesting. And we got a few more. So Rod has asked, what would reasonable adjustments consist of? For example, would a really lengthy hesitation in speech when nervous, like in an interview, count as needing an adjustment?
Not necessarily. If it's something that's covered by the DDA, so Disability Discrimination Act. So, for example, if you're autistic and you can't do consistent eye contact, that would probably be worth telling someone in advance. Or if you need a moment to process a question before giving an example, and all of those are reasonable adjustments. If ideally it's for things that are covered under the DDA. Does that
Cool.
help?
No, that was no, thank you so much for that answer. And then we got a couple more questions coming through. So this one we got, hi Janine, thank you for such an insightful session. Should we lead with our education or our work-related experience on our CV, whether or not it's relevant, or should we lead with whichever one is more relevant? Thank you in advance.
Okay, I would go with putting work first, and it's definitely relevant, but pick out the similarities from the work that you're doing that will also, the transferable skills that would also apply in the role that you're going for. But I would lead with work and I would have education at the bottom because it's less important. Training, that if you've got that already, that's quite important. So I would generally have a box or something near the top that's got hours and training and licenses and things like that. So it's all neat and it's in one area. So we're not frantically going over 2 pages to try and find information. Help the recruiters out a bit. But yeah, I would do work first, education last. And you don't have to put the subjects that you've got. You can just put X GCSEs. You don't have to put the grades. And yeah, and we don't need subjects and things because is it relevant now? No, it shows us that at that time you studied and you obviously did fairly decently. If you've got a degree, we would like to have the result of that on there. If you don't put it on there, it often makes us think, well, that's bound to be a 2-2 because people never want to put a 2-2 on there, a 2-2 or below. But just own it because it doesn't matter now because this is what you're doing now.
Yeah, brilliant. That's really good advice. And then Stephanie's got some fantastic questions tonight. I have a work experience placement coming up with British Airways in ground operations and think that this would be great to put on my CV. If I was applying to Jet2 or TUI sponsored pathways, would I mention I did work experience with another airline, BA, or not?
Yes, because it's relevant and it shows. Think about the skills that you're going to gain from that placement. Firstly, congratulations on getting one. But yeah, absolutely. Put that on your CV. That should be right at the top, really recent. And think about the skills that it gives you, and keep a close eye on them as you're going through, because when you complete it, there'll be things that you forget. So keep on track of it and write down things that you're doing so that you can go back and put the most relevant ones in your CV. But absolutely, because not everyone gets selected for that. Makes you stand out. Anything that makes you stand out is great and use it.
Yeah, brilliant. And then we just got one more quick question from Rod, who's asked, if you have a lot of work history, would you remove education entirely or keep it in?
I'd keep it in. If you've got a lot of work history and it's it depends what a lot is. I was working on a CV recently with someone who is in their mid-40s and they're coming into aviation as a second career. So they've had a very successful career in financial services. And I did the last 7 or 8 years within that industry, and the other bits I would just bullet point and just say previous experience in whatever roles, so you can summarize it in a couple of lines, but keep it on there. But yeah, always include your education in there on somewhere. As I say, it only needs to be one line because you could get GCSEs, A levels, degree, you could get all of that on one line. Just put a kind of bullet point or something in between them all.
That's great. Perfect. So if we got any more questions, if we could just pop them in the chat box for now, that'd be brilliant. I see someone's got their hand up, but if you can just pop your question in the chat box, that'd be brilliant. And guys, obviously Janine is absolutely amazing, as we can all see. So if anyone wants to get in contact with her or needs further support or anything like that, please do reach out to us, and we would really, really love to connect you guys. So yeah, any more questions in the chat box, please? If not, we'll hang on for a minute or so. We'll just have a quick minute just to wait to see if there's any more. If you have got your hand up, if you wouldn't mind just putting your question in the chat box for now, that would be fantastic. Yeah, any last kind of words of wisdom, Janine? Anything else to add? I mean, you've covered so much tonight. It's been fantastic.
Everyone's head's going to be spinning about
Yeah.
I think you probably tell I'm quite passionate about it, but I just want people to understand what you're going for, whatever you're going for, is totally achievable, and I hope you get there. But if you do need some help, absolutely reach out, because there are, you know, there's lots of help out there if you want it, if you need it.
100%. And we've got these are last couple of questions, so we'll just read these out. Got a follow-up question, which is brilliant, asking, sorry, let me just read this. If you're freshly out of university and have only had a few part-time jobs or placements, should you still lead with those? Yeah.
And try, if you're not doing anything at the moment, try and get some volunteering to put on there and freshen it up, because it's relevant, and it makes you look like you're doing something. Because if you're not, it can think, well, okay, they finished in the summer and it's now October. What have they been doing? Okay, maybe go off, do a bit of traveling or something, or go off on a lovely holiday if you can. But beyond that, it kind of shows that you're still kind of hungry to get experience. I cannot, yeah, I can't rave about volunteering enough, really, because there's lots of people that need help, and there are lots of people that could potentially help, and it looks brilliant on your CV.
And we got one last question. That's fantastic. And we've got one last question as well, which is from Hannah. If you only have a few hours of experience flying, is it worth including this when applying for ab initio cadet programs?
Absolutely, because you've got some experience, other people have none. Whatever experience, relevant experience you have got, put it down there.
Lovely. And I've got one cheeky last one, which I've just seen, which is top tip for avoiding being nervous in an interview.
Okay, well, it isn't think about your interviewers naked, because that is terrifying. Just remember, they want you to do well. Really, they want you to do well. They want you to do as well as you do. Shoulders back. This is what I say to my daughter. Deep breath, shoulders back, sit down, and remember, you've done much worse than this interview. You know, you will have had some pretty hairy things that you've dealt with during the course of your life, and you've survived, so you can do this interview.
I love that. And that's a fantastic tone to kind of like draw this to a close. So I just want to say thank you so much. This has been honestly a really brilliant webinar, and I'm sure this has helped so many people that are on this call, and certainly I've learned so much. So all I can say is just an absolutely huge thank you from everyone at Elevate Her, and I can see all the messages coming in now saying thank you so much and how much everyone's appreciating it. So I wish you all a lovely rest of your evening. Please do go and have a lovely time, whatever you're doing. And yeah, hopefully we'll be back with a part 2 with Janine, because I think there's much more to cover here.